Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's session that's been held by the FCA, which is the Financial Conduct Authority. This afternoon, we'll be joined by the team and we'll be talking all about careers at the FCA, the kind of work that you'll be doing in various departments and teams. And we're going to be talking to apprentices who will share their own experiences and their tips as an apprentice themselves. So the team will be on hand to answer any questions that you have. So if you want to pop them in the chat box as the presentation is going on, then we'll put the questions to the team after the presentation. Just a reminder that this is being recorded, so don't worry if you feel like you're going to miss anything. We will be emailing you a link with the recording, so unless there's anything that you really want to snapshot now and take a picture of the screen with your phone, it will be sent to you afterwards. I think that this is kind of my cue now to disappear, hand over to the team, and I will see you for the Q&A.
Thank you. Hello, welcome to everybody who's currently on the call. My name's Hannah Leach, so I'm just going to be running through the beginning of this session. I lead on apprenticeship, early careers apprenticeship recruitment and management at the FCA at the moment. And so I get really excited to do sessions like this because it's just wonderful opportunity to talk about what we do, what we offer, and hopefully answer any questions that you have. On the call with me, I do have 3 colleagues from across the FCA as well, who are either current apprentices or previous apprentices, and they will hopefully be able to kind of welcome you and do a bit more of an in-depth question and answer session with you at the end of our session. But I will let them introduce themselves in due course. So I just thought I'd quickly run through kind of what we're hoping to achieve from this event today. Really, we want to kind of for you to get to know who we are, what we do, and why we do it. We're, I think, a relatively unique employer within financial services, and I'll talk a little bit why I think that in just a moment. So we want you to also be able to understand why apprenticeships are important to us, and also a bit more information about the type of programs that we offer, and hopefully discover how an apprenticeship at the FCA could be an opportunity for you to fulfill potential and also learn while you earn, which is obviously a real benefit to doing apprenticeship programs specifically. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of what we're going to cover, and then we will finish it off with a question and answer session as well. So who we are. So we are the Financial Conduct Authority, or the FCA. Hopefully some of you have heard of us before, but it's not necessarily surprising if you haven't. So what we basically do is we regulate financial services across the UK. So we are here to ensure that the conduct of those financial organisations is meeting the expectations that we set out. So at the moment we are regulating around 51,000 businesses, so quite a few across, as I say, the UK. We're also the prudential supervisor for 49,000 firms. And we set specific standards for around 18,000 firms. So obviously, as all of those numbers will imply, there's a lot of different financial services that we work very closely with and regulate on a daily basis. Our main goals as an organisation are to kind of make financial markets work so that consumers like you and I get a fair deal. So our operational objectives are to protect consumers, protect financial markets, and to promote competition. So obviously, as those will indicate, what we really want is to ensure that everybody who uses a financial service, which I'm sure are probably most people here on this call right now, so anything from a bank account to an insurance policy and everything else in between really that involves financial transactions. We are there to make sure that the customers and the consumers using those are getting the best deal and are not going to be unfairly disadvantaged by anything that's happening out in the markets. So it's really important work, and it gives everybody a great insight into financial services more generally when you work at the FCA. So I find it fascinating because I learn about other organisations, whether it's a big bank, a small accountancy firm, and anything that's going on kind of externally in the market, we still have a really great insight into. So if you're one of those people who isn't 100% sure what you want to do, but think that financial services might be something that holds your interest, coming to work with the FCA is a really good opportunity to kind of learn more and develop that understanding. So I would always say it's a really good shout if you're not 100% sure yet what you want to do, but think that this might be a direction that you'd like to travel. So that takes me on to kind of what opportunities are available. So because we're a regulator and because we have so many different divisions and departments, we have a lot of apprenticeship opportunities. So it really does depend on what interests you, what kind of career you think you want to go down. So I've put some of the opportunities that we run regularly. For each year, we recruit for most of these programs. So you see we've got a variety across level 3 programs, level 4, level 6 and level 7. So I've given like a little indication of kind of what that means. So a level 3 program is equivalent to A level. Level 4 being a kind of diploma level 6 degree, and level 7 a master's. So we have a real plethora of opportunities. So for example, the Senior Financial Services Customer Advisor, we have a supervision hub or a kind of call centre inbuilt within the FCA to manage all customer queries and concerns, and they would recruit this particular programme of Apprentice because it's a really wonderful opportunity to kind of learn about the market and the different calls that come through directly to the FCA. So that's one example of a program that we run. If you're thinking more down the marketing, we have a digital marketing apprenticeship that we run most years, which will allow you to go into our communications, editorial and digital team. So again, as the name would imply, a lot of kind of digital marketing, social media, but also internal review of adverts, comms, trying to think what else, all of the kind of the stuff that gets posted on our website. It's also a really exciting opportunity to get involved if that's something you'd be interested in. So yeah, I won't go through all of them in any great detail, but we've got paralegals, HR support, so some really interesting opportunities there. We also have quite a few programs that have a more technical, analytical leaning. So you see there we've got our cybersecurity technologist, we've got data analyst program, which is a really popular program. Interested in data or cyber, and kind of looking down that more technical route, there's also opportunities here for you to work within that space as well. And as you see, we've also got the kind of the master's levels, the data scientist and the accountancy programs. So it really just depends on what route you want to go down, but there's lots of opportunities here, so definitely worth looking at our website, having a think about if any of these might be of interest to you. We're not live at the moment for applications, but we are hoping to be in the next few months. So what I would recommend is going to our early careers website, having a bit of a look around. There's some really helpful videos and just general insight into our programs, but we will post any live vacancies there as well. So just a really helpful tool to be able to keep track of what we've got going on. So yeah, hopefully some of those sound of interest, and you might have some questions specifically about those for some of our current apprentices as well. So if you were to apply for one of our programs, I thought it would also be really helpful just to kind of give you a bit of an overview of the recruitment and selection process in a bit more detail. So I appreciate that sometimes this can be a bit daunting for people, especially if they haven't necessarily gone through a process like this before. So I just wanted to kind of outline it and just hopefully kind of reassure you that it's not as scary sometimes as it sounds. So the initial process is just to apply online. So usually that's just it gives us the ability to outline whether or not you meet the minimum requirements for the role. Because our apprenticeship programs are funded by the levy, the apprenticeship levy, it means that there are certain requirements that have been set out by the government that we have to meet in order to use that funding. So when we say, eligibility, that's partly what we're looking at as well. So for our programs in particular, for the majority, you need 5 GCSEs and at least maths and English, ideally. If not, you may have to take an additional course while working with us in maths or English, depending on which one you don't have, to meet the government requirements, but that's just to make you aware. And we also ask for 2 A levels or equivalent. again, kind of A to C, but we do take extenuating circumstances into consideration. So if you don't quite meet those entry requirements but have kind of reasons why, you can still reach out to us and we can have a conversation with you about whether we'd be able to make an exception. So that's the online application part, relatively pain-free, I promise. And then if you are shortlisted after that, you will go through to the telephone interview. So this telephone interview really is just to get a better understanding of your motivation, why the FCA, why the program that you've applied for, just to go into a bit more detail and delve into that a bit more. We're also kind of looking into just get a basic understanding of the level that you're currently at from that telephone interview. So obviously a really important stage, but something that you can definitely prepare for just by doing a bit of research on the FCA's values and such. And then the final stage is the assessment centre. So I think these are probably the thing that scare people the most, but they are our final recruitment stage. And if you were to be shortlisted for the assessment centre, at the moment we run these virtually. So you would do it from the comfort of your own home. You don't come into the office at this point. Obviously, with COVID and general restrictions, that might change in the next kind of year. But at the moment, we're planning to run the next lot of apprenticeship assessment centres through a virtual platform. But you'll do a variety of different exercises on the day, and we'll basically be able to just really demonstrate your abilities, and also just going back to that motivation. So kind of why the FCA, why an apprenticeship program, and hopefully just give a really good answer for the assessors to assess on that day. And that's it, that's the final stage. So at that point we would make decisions, but that just gives you a bit of an idea of the recruitment and the selection process for us here at the FCA. So I promise not as long as some processes can be, and we will be there to support you throughout. So if you have any questions as you're going through that, we'll be here to support and answer those as we can. So I think that's everything for the recruitment and selection process, but I thought I'd pass on to my colleague Toby, just because he's going to go through a little bit of a kind of assessment centre and application hints and tips. So I'll stop talking now and I'll pass over to Toby.
Brilliant, thank you, Hannah. And hi everyone. So yeah, as Hannah mentioned, I'm going to go through some hints and tips for the assessment centres and especially the telephone interview. These are sort of aligned to the FCA, but I'm sure they're also tips that you can take onto any other assessment centres you may have for other organisations. So let me just move on the slide. So yeah, the first one, especially when I look back on my sort of application process, was a big one for me, was researching the company's values and strategic aim. This is obviously before the telephone interview, having those values and understanding what the FCA do and what they're aiming to complete by the end of the year or overall in general, and doing that by following their company values are really great to understand when you go into a telephone interview, and understanding sort of the questions they may be asking you and the sort of skill base or motivation they're looking for people to join us at the FCA on an apprenticeship. Moving on from that, obviously, as well, for the assessment centre interview as well as telephone interview, having some examples already thought out for possible interview questions. So I think one thing you may realise throughout your career is that a lot of interviews may be similar, obviously just questions worded differently, and sort of having those questions and sort of examples ready are going to really make you more comfortable going into that interview. So whether that's sort of, you've got examples for when you've been really organised, whether that's in a part-time job or during your educational time, or whether it's a time where you've worked as a team or where you've overcome a challenge, all those sort of examples, having questions and answers to those are really helpful moving through the process. And obviously, again, just linking back to the values, having those, there'll be things that you're questioned on throughout the interview. Another big one, which I wish I did, was keeping up to date with FCA news. So again, this doesn't have to be something that you do on a daily basis. It may be something that you do maybe once a week, once a month ahead of you, maybe having your interview or telephone interview for the FCA. Again, just having that knowledge of the FCA is a really good motivational standout to us, that you're really keen to work at the FCA and keeping up to date with the news and the things that are going on internally with us. Next one's a bit cliche, is obviously getting a good night's sleep. But I'm sure we've all been there before, where you're all really tired and you've got something big happening the next day. It sometimes does lead to that morning when you're getting up and you're like, don't really want to be doing this. But just getting that good night's sleep in, making sure you're prepared, is going to really help you ahead of an assessment centre. And then the final one is probably the biggest one. Really, is just remembering to be yourself. At the FCA, we ask everyone to bring their whole self to work, and just being yourself in front of the assessors you see on the day is a really big thing. And as well, just to ask questions. Obviously, at an assessment centre, you're going to be sat speaking to different assessors from the FCA, especially the business area that you may be looking to go into. And it's a great opportunity to find out as much as you want about the company itself, or about the sort of work you'll be doing, or the sort of experiences they've had from working at the FCA. So I'd really utilise the interview times to really ask those questions you have at the end. And then finally, it's not on the list, but it's one to maybe think about. Obviously, with the virtual world we've got, is just checking technology before a virtual assessment centre, whether that's the night before, just checking that your microphone working, your camera's working. It can really save you some stress on the day to ensure that you're all correct. And likewise, if things move back onto the location and you're doing a face-to-face assessment centre, it's just making sure that you're obviously aware of where the office is based on the day. Again, just sort of eliminating any stress you may have before an assessment centre. So I'll pass you back to one of my colleagues. Cheers all.
Thanks, Toby. Welcome, everyone. So I'm just going to give you a few points why you should be choosing the FCA. So as my colleague Hannah mentioned earlier, if you have an interest in financial services but not quite sure where exactly, the FCA is an ideal employer there, as you really get a bird's eye view of financial services within the UK. Our apprenticeship programs, they offer a very wide view of the FCA divisions. So a lot of the apprenticeship schemes are rotational. What that basically means is that you move from one team to the other within the division. So you really get a huge sense of what the division is doing, and you get to work in every team for a little bit. You also get the opportunity to work shadow other areas. So if there's an area that in particular is interesting for you, again, through the rotations as well, you will be able to see these live and hands on deck there. You have the opportunity to learn while you earn, which is a really nice one, because you can, whatever you're studying, you can put into practice in your work life immediately, and that makes your learning experience maybe a bit of an easier one. We have a very diverse cohort of apprentices from different range of backgrounds, and we also have yearly approximately 25 apprentices, which also gives you like a strong sense of social sense. That means we have different events throughout the year where we all come together as apprentices. You all start together, you go through the onboarding together. So you'd find that apprentices go out for drinks together and do other social activities together. You also get the chance to participate in the annual CEO Challenge. What the CEO Challenge is it's a project run by our corporate responsibility team, and it's a project to give back to the community, especially the community of the in the London Borough of Newham, where our London office is located. You come together as apprentices and graduates, and you come up with a project. It runs for roughly 6 months, and at the end of it, you have the chance to present your project to the CEO. Which it's a really fun project as well. And then finally, the like I mentioned, the London office is located in Stratford. You can see the picture on the left-hand side there has an amazing view over the Olympic Park, and a prime location in Stratford.
Thank you, Mona. That's really helpful. So hopefully that's given everybody a bit of an idea kind of into us as an organisation. We were quite conscious that we didn't want to throw too much information at you all, but we did think it would be good just to go through some of this stuff at a high level. So we do actually have Mona and Toby, but also Hai, who are on the call with us now. And we just thought that as they are current apprentices, or in Toby's case, a past apprentice, it would be a really good opportunity for you guys to ask kind of them what their experience is, kind of ask them why perhaps that they decided to go down this route in more detail. But I've got a quick slide here just outlining who they all are at very, very high level. But obviously they'll be more than happy to introduce themselves properly. But on that note, I think I'll turn off my camera and I'll be quiet and I'll pass over.
Actually, I don't think you can leave us just yet.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
There's been we've had quite a lot of questions come through, and I think I should start with the kind of HR-y led ones while you're here, and then we can go on to the other guys. So I'll kind of go through them now. So can we have a reminder of where everybody can view the roles when they're live, where they can go onto your website and find everything?
Absolutely. So if you go just Google the FCA website, when you're on the main homepage of the FCA website and you scroll right to the bottom, you'll see that there are some quick links, and one of them says early careers. So if you click on that one, it will take you directly to the early careers page, which has information on our graduate programs, apprenticeships, summer internships, all of those different offerings. And you can just have a quick look and see kind of the background information that we've got there. I think we've got a video or two on there as well from people discussing kind of apprenticeships more generally. And that's where we will post vacancies as well. So when we are live, which we're not at the moment, but we're hoping to be in the spring, all open vacancies will be stored there. So you can click on the links, read a bit more information about each role, and hopefully then submit your application if you're interested.
Brilliant. That's great. A few more around actually applying and so on. Is there an age limit?
No, so there's absolutely no age limit. So as long as you meet the minimum requirements, which will be kind of outlined more in depth on the job description or the adverts as well. But so long as you meet the minimum requirements, there is no age limit or restriction there at all.
And then on the subject of minimum requirements, actually, somebody said, would BTEC be equivalent?
Yes, it would. Yes, right. A BTEC is absolutely equivalent. So yeah, if you've got a BTEC, that's absolutely fine.
Okay. Someone says, I'm interested in the data science role. What are the requirements for this one?
Right. So what I would say, actually, I probably should have mentioned it earlier. So thank you for the question, because it's reminded me. So although most of our programs have the kind of the more generic entry requirements, for some of the programs that are either at a higher level, so for example, the data science level 7 or the accountancy level 7, and are more technical or numerical, it's probably the better word, we do also ask for an A level in a numerical subject. So we haven't necessarily said it has to be in something like accountancy or in data, but something like maths, physics, just a more numerical subject. Other than that, there are no other requirements for those programs. So long as you meet the minimum and you've got that numerical subject, you are eligible to apply for those programs.
Brilliant. Is there a way to register interest in advance so that people here can get emailed when applications open?
Absolutely. So we are working on that at the moment. We're hoping to add a register your interest link to the website shortly. So again, maybe in the next week or so, if you check back on that early careers website, we're hoping to have something added very soon, which will exactly be that. So you can put your name, your email address down, and we will then be able to reach out to you as soon as roles go live.
Okay, that's really helpful. You've mentioned the London office, but where do you recruit candidates from and to?
Sure. So at the moment, we, as the FCA, we only have 2 offices. So we've got our main London one in Stratford, as Mona mentioned, but we also have one in Edinburgh. So obviously Scotland, but at the moment there are discussions around opening further offices kind of around the UK. So this hasn't necessarily, we haven't got a premises yet. This isn't kind of set in stone in terms of where these will be, but there are definite discussions. At the moment, all of our apprentices and graduates are recruited into the London office. So there is an expectation that that is where you will come when you are in the office. But we are hoping that over the next year or two, that things will evolve and change. And obviously, if there are other offices around the UK, we might be able to start bringing in apprentices to those buildings as well. But for now, just obviously being as transparent as possible, the expectation is that London will be your main base. we are currently operating at a kind of 20% in the office model. So most people are going into the London office 1 or 2 days a week and working from home for the rest. They're trialing that at the moment to see if long term that will be the approach that we take. So I think it is quite beneficial, because it means that for anybody who doesn't live in or around London, but you're still interested, there is going to be the capacity for you to work from home as well. So as long as you can commit to those 1 or 2 days a week in the office, the rest of the week you'd be able to work from home, which hopefully would be better for those of you who might be looking to apply from outside of London.
Yeah, okay, that's really helpful. There's been questions around how competitive are the apprenticeships and how many do you take on each year?
Sure. So we usually take 25 apprentices each year, but that's always up for discussion. So at the moment, we're liaising with the senior HR colleagues who make the decision on how many we can recruit. So that number might change slightly, but for the last few years, it's stayed at 25. It's usually quite a variety, as I said, all of those programs that I spoke through earlier. So it's usually kind of a few roles into each area. What I would say is that some programs are slightly more competitive than others. But if you've done your research and you've got that background information, then you are just as likely to be shortlisted for those roles as anybody else. So I wouldn't want to put anybody off by saying that they are competitive processes. They are. We do tend to get a good number of applications through, but nobody is any less kind of likely to get it if they put the work in and they do their research. So certain programs are probably slightly more competitive, just because maybe we only have 1 or 2 of those roles instead of, say, 5 or 6. But it's still really important just to go for what you think would be the best for your career development.
Brilliant. That's really helpful. More questions coming in that are relevant to you, Hannah. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
It's a good thing. I'm loving it. Keep
Absolutely.
going, guys. So are there any fees to do any of the degree level apprenticeships? No, there aren't. So because all of our programs are designed with the idea of them being funded by the levy, so this basically is why those entry level requirements at the application stage are so important. So because we are fully expecting to fund through the levy, if anybody isn't eligible for levy funding, they will be kind of declined at that early stage. So it means that if you do get through the process, it's because you're fully eligible, and it means that if you are made an offer and you join us, all of your program will be funded. Brilliant. The question around which university accredits the degree courses?
That's a really good question, and I know that it's changed recently, and I should have looked it up before this call, but I can't actually remember. So slap on my wrist. I'm very, very sorry. Now I'm trying to remember. I know
it will be on the early careers section.
Absolutely, yeah. So it'll be, and also I think we've done we do a lot of our programs through, especially the degree level ones, through BPP and Cambridge Spark. So if you are interested in the accountancy one through BPP, if you have a look on their website, they'll probably have a bit of extra information about the actual qualification. And similarly, Cambridge Spark is the organisation that we use as the learning provider for the data science program. So again, if you're interested in that one, maybe have a look at their website as well, because they should have a bit more information about the accrediting body.
Brilliant. That's really helpful. Thank you. Right then, another couple of questions for you then. I think then for the next half hour, we'll move on to the rest of the team. Obviously, if there are any questions that you want to keep putting through, guys, that are for Hannah, we'll have everybody at the end of the call for 5 or 10 minutes or so. So don't hold back, keep asking. So we want to know as well, are there many opportunities to progress after completing an apprenticeship?
Yeah, absolutely. So we don't guarantee permanent roles as part of the apprenticeship in most cases. So the majority of the time you would come and join us on what we call a fixed term contract for 2 years. So within that 2 years, obviously you're working as an employee. So you are considered an employee in terms of the benefits and the opportunities you have, but there is a set end date to your contract, and that will include enough time for you to complete your program. However, I'd say that this is where my statistics is probably not exact, but when I last checked, as in previous years, I'd say it's usually between 80 and 90% of each cohort who go on to secure permanent roles here at the FCA after they finish their fixed term contract. A lot of the time it also depends on what you want to do. So obviously as an organisation and as an employer, we're really passionate about keeping apprentices on where they have an interest to stay, especially as they've had 2 years with us. You know, they've got a lot of experience and knowledge about us as an employer and an organisation. Sometimes you get some apprentices who go, I really enjoyed it, I've got my qualification, but actually I don't think this is an area for me. So it's really valuable in that respect as well, because they still come out of that 2 years with something quite valuable, you know, their qualification and their work experience, but also the knowledge that perhaps financial services or regulation isn't for them. But I would say there's probably about an 80 to 90% conversion rate onto either permanent roles or other fixed term contracts if they're doing other cover work. So I'd say there are good opportunities for that. So actually, Toby, who's one of the apprentices we've got on the call at the moment, he secured a permanent role following on from his programme. So he might be able to talk you through a little bit about his experience there. But yes, I'd like to say there are opportunities, definitely.
Great. On that subject, actually, I think now's the time to bring Toby, Mona and Hai on board and to speak a little bit more about their own experiences and so on. I've got some specific questions that are for everybody to answer, really. Hannah, I've got a final question, which I think, well, it's applicable for everybody, but everybody's going to have a separate stance on it. The question is, what is the best way for an applicant to stand out and what key skills do you look for? And I think it'd be really helpful if everybody could, I suppose, give their thoughts on what they feel are the key skills and what they did to stand out best within the process.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess just to start it off from the employer side of things as opposed to the actual apprentice side of things, I think the biggest thing for me is seeing that motivation. So we see a lot of candidates applying, and I think if we're being very candid, it's quite clear that a lot of the time you apply for a job because you need a job, and there is nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly normal. I know I've done it before where I've been like, the reason I'm applying for this job is it's a job that will pay me and I will get some work experience. But the really outstanding candidates, or the ones that kind of really stand out, are the ones that have a very clear motivation. I think because we as an organisation are a bit unusual perhaps within financial services. So we're not a profit organisation. We don't make money for ourselves. We're funded by the firms we regulate, and our main purpose is to protect consumers. So we're kind of financial services, but with a bit more of a kind of moral side. That makes it sound like other financial services are awful. They're not. It's just a different kind of attitude and a different, I guess, intention. So it's really important for us to see candidates understand that and appreciate it and kind of want to get on board with that element of work as well. So I think that's my biggest thing when I see candidates clearly demonstrating that motivation. That's a big one.
Brilliant, thank you. Yes, and pitch the question to the rest of everybody here, please.
Yeah, sure. I think one of the biggest things from being on both sides, obviously, where I joined as an apprentice and then now work in the early career space and recruiting apprentices, grads and interns, it's just sort of bringing yourself and your whole self to work. You know, one thing that Mona sort of really spoke about when she did her slide was sort of the diverse sort of cohorts we have, especially for the apprentices, people coming from all different sort of backgrounds in education, whether it's just left and done their A-levels or they've had some experience in working or they've gone to uni and decided it wasn't for them. And just bring your whole self with the skills you may have from what you've done previously in. You know, there's no point trying to be something that you're not, or trying to live up to something else, because that's the beauty of the apprenticeship scheme, is we accept anyone from all levels to come in, and we don't expect anything major apart from obviously the A-level requirements.
Brilliant.
I think, yeah, I would agree with what's been said. I think being confident, especially, is a good skill. I think when I applied, I'd come straight from sixth form, so I didn't have the experience of a workplace, and I think just being confident with that, you know, yes, you're inexperienced, but you can still demonstrate the skills you do have, and I think that's really important to show that you're willing to put yourself out there and develop your skills.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. I was just going to say I can only echo what has been said so far.
Okay, brilliant. And when we draw on experience, I'm sure that you've all got very different backgrounds and paths that you took to get where you are today. But did any of you take a work experience or have experience that was relevant that you felt led you to where you are now? If so, what was it? If not, yeah, we can move on.
Maybe I'll make a start on this. I don't think you need particular work experience for any of the apprenticeship programs that you're going into. Speaking of my personal experience, I came from a different sector. I decided to make a career move and chose to go down the apprenticeship route. I didn't have any work experience in HR beforehand. And I really, the beauty of the apprenticeship program is that you get to develop these while on the program. So you get to learn it and you get to use what you learned into practice as well. Obviously, with any job and school you have done before, you have soft skills that you will be able to use and just build on these as well. And things like the CEO challenge, because you come together as a team, it really teaches you a lot of things that you will be using throughout your career, no matter what you will be doing, because it teaches you how to work as a team, how to engage with stakeholders, and how to manage your time. So really there are a lot of skills that you learn during the apprenticeship that you will use for your whole career.
Brilliant. Side of things. No? Okay.
Sorry, I
on.
think it cut out there.
Yeah, so
I didn't quite hear that.
I couldn't quite get that.
Oh, sorry, I was just saying, is there anything else to say on the work experience side of things?
Oh yeah, no, I'll jump in. So I finished my levels and I actually went to university. I was set on going to uni. I didn't last very long, I'll be honest. I lasted about a couple of months max, decided it wasn't for me. And then that's where I went into full-time work while I waited for the next year of sort of apprenticeships to open up, where I really thought that I could, utilise the sort of being at work while learning. So obviously, when I joined the FCA, that was my first office job, and obviously there are some transferable skills, however there weren't many. But I think, again, like Mona said, that's sort of the whole part of the apprenticeship, that you come in and you learn those and then you're able to move them on into your further career.
Brilliant. And then what kind of skills have you you learnt and are learning during the apprenticeship?
I guess I can go. So I'm on the data analyst apprenticeship. So yeah, a lot of the skills that I've learned are on the more technical side, in the apprenticeship, at least in the scheme. So that includes a lot of coding and learning different coding languages and how we can apply them. So I think those have been, that's the kind of breadth of what the scheme teaches you. And then, of course, from the other 80% of the work you do not on the apprenticeship, there's a plethora of skills that you learn from just being in the office and working with colleagues and learning about what the organisation does.
And Hi, just while you're here, I think it would be interesting to know as well, and this is putting you on the spot, but what is it, or is there anything that you've learned about yourself as well during this whole process which you didn't realise?
Yeah, I guess there are some things. I think the FCA is quite good in the way that we carry out kind of reviews and one-to-ones with your manager, so you can help to improve yourself. I think with me, I've learned that my organisation skills are a lot better. Sorry, a lot worse than I think they are in my head. I tend to keep things in my head, thinking that I will remember everything, and I think since I've started, I've improved that by just planning stuff out and writing out what I need to do, and that's something that I think I've improved and I've learned about myself, that I'm you don't have to keep it all in your head. You don't have to be some kind of mastermind of everything you need to do.
Definitely. Mona and Toby, have you got anything to say around that?
Yeah, sure. For some of the programs, it's not all of them, just to point that out, but some of them are rotational, which is really great. It means you get to rotate. So for myself, I think I went to about 4 or 5 different areas within my department. So obviously within HR, on the 18 months I was on program, I spent a fair while at different areas, and just building on that, you learn so many different things, because obviously every sort of team within a department focus on different things. And I feel like now, if I was able to go and help a different area, I'd be sort of at that where I've got the base knowledge, I could step in and help. And I think that's really great, especially it helps you when it comes to the end of your apprenticeship, knowing where your skill sets are stronger, where they're weaker, and where you may want to look to progress your career. And I think even on a non-rotational program, you're going to find at the end of your apprenticeship where your skills lie and where you may want to take your further career, following on from that.
Brilliant. Thank you. And I think it'd be useful to know as well from everybody. I mean, Toby, you've given some background around the fact that you went to uni, it wasn't for you, and this is the path that you've taken. But for all of you, really, can you tell us a little bit about A, why you chose to do an apprenticeship, and B, why you chose the FCA?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in again. So for me, I think obviously I thought I was gonna. Well, the school that I went to prior to joining university was very sort of university driven. All students were sort of almost expected to go to university, and just to point out, that's not the case at all. If you are someone that prefers to be working, sort of doing more day-to-day, using your skills and not sitting in a classroom doing different things, then I'd highly recommend an apprenticeship. Again, as well, obviously the money comes into it. You are learning while you're working and earning, and that was a big one for me. I think I found when I was at university, I was sort of bunking off to go and work. So if you've got that sort of money-driven go, it gives you that sort of platform to earn while you learn. So that was a big one for me. And as well, I think, yeah, just gives you that balance where you come out the end of it with a qualification as well as some work experience and good connections in a great organisation.
Brilliant. That's great. Thank you. Mona and Hi.
Thank you. Why I personally chose the FCA is I think one thing that really drew me there is the missions and the values of the FCA. Like Hannah mentioned, we're not a typical employer. We're not working to make money. We are working to protect consumers and adding public value. And I think if you join the FCA, you will definitely get the sense of that quite early, that there is a big passion there for protection of consumers, and I just felt that this is something that I want to do long term, and that I will not reach a point in my life and asking myself, who am I doing this for?
Brilliant. That's a great answer.
I think, yeah, I would agree with you, Mona. I think as well, you know, it really feels impactful, the work you do. There's a real world impact. You know, almost everybody interacts with companies that we regulate. So I think that was a big factor for me, just the real world outcomes that we produce.
Brilliant. Thank you. Got a question around the interviews, and I think it would be really helpful if you could each give something that you would like, a top tip for interviews based on your own experience, and also a top no, if that's even a thing. So something you definitely should avoid and not do. That would be really helpful if you could.
Yeah, sure. Happy to jump in on this one. I think, like I mentioned on my slide, one of the biggest pieces of advice, if you walk away with anything from today, is the sort of preparing for interviews. I think you'll find throughout your whole career, I'm sure that everyone on the call as well probably speak who's done interviews in the past, that a lot of interviews are sort of very similar, just they may be worded in different ways, and sort of having those examples of potential things you may be asked is a really good way to go into an interview. Having, you know, looking at the sort of times you've used good organisational skills, times where you've worked in a team, you've overcome challenges, things you've done well. All those sort of examples are going to really help you. And I think that sort of links into the point where you said no-nos. When you get to an interview, sometimes you can panic on the spot, and you can try and make up an answer very sort of quick there and then on the spot, and it's not the best. It sort of leads you down a rabbit hole, and it may come out not answering the question the best way you may have thought. So I think just taking, if you're asked a question in an interview, especially at the FCA, all of our assessors and people who work are so friendly. If you even have to take a minute or two just to sort of gather your thoughts, even if it's a few seconds, think about what you're going to say and then sort of deliver it. It's better than rushing. I definitely found that in my interview with the sort of first few questions. I had to take a step back and go, right, I need to sort myself out and think about things before I start answering.
And I think just to interject there's also no harm in if you don't feel like you've heard a question correctly. Sometimes, I think we can think, right, I can't be seen to have not heard that, as silly as it sounds. Don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry, can I ask again? Or, could you ask that? I don't know whether you can say, can you ask that in a different way? But I think what I'm trying to say is that I'm sure that you're open for the interviewee to be open and ask just for sometimes that little bit more, clarification.
Yeah, no, we're 100%. I feel like, at the FCA, we want everyone that comes to us for an assessment centre to feel as comfortable as possible. We always do welcome calls with candidates to make sure that they're prepared and sort of comfortable going into things. But yeah, if there's ever questions you need repeating, always happy for people to read it out, especially in a virtual platform. You never know when things are going to sort of drop in and out with sound or camera quality and all those sort of things.
Brilliant, thanks. Mona and Hi, what are your thoughts on this?
I think if I speak from my own personal experience, I had a day where technology was just not on my side, and everything that you can imagine just went wrong. And the main tip there is don't panic. There is always a solution for everything. And if you can and have some backup devices in the back, feel free to have these. If not, in my case, they reached out to me on the phone and we just moved it all over the phone, and it worked well in the end. But the main thing is don't panic, and there is a solution for it. And just one thing that I would add is take the opportunity when, if assessors ask you, do you have any questions, really ask any questions that you might have. There is no wrong question. So just take that, and it will show as well that you are engaged with the FCA.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah, I think further to Toby's point with preparing some examples, and this is kind of depends on how you best remember things, I guess. But for me, actually speaking to just talking to myself or talking to a family member through the questions, I think is really useful, because I think I know what I'm going to say, and then in the interview it all comes out kind of tongue-tied. So that was really good for me. And then I guess for a big no-no, I would say try not to think that the interviewers are not on your side. I think they're not trying to trick you with questions. That some of the questions can be difficult, but I think you give your best answer, and I think it's easy to not think of them as being on your side, but really they are, and they're always really nice. So I wouldn't be too worried about that.
Brilliant. It's interesting what you said there about when you have an answer prepared in your head and then it comes out and sometimes you feel like it's gobbledygook. I know in my personal experience throughout years of having to do bits of public speaking and so on, what helps me genuinely is to say, it's just what you've said really, say exactly what I want to say out loud, and somehow within my mind that helps cement it. It really lessens the chance of just feeling like it's all coming out and not making any sense.
Yeah, I think, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I was going to say, actually linked to that as well, there's a model that you can use for competency-based interviews especially. So a competency-based interview, they're quite common, but it's basically when an interviewer might say something like, tell me about a time when you did this. And what they're really trying to do is find out exactly a time in your life where you have demonstrated that value or that skill or whatever it is. And there's a model called the STAR model, which again, it helps to speak it out verbally. That's what kind of made me think of it. And it's STAR, so it's situation, task, action, result. Some of you may have already heard about it, so apologies if I'm just teaching you how to suck eggs. But for anyone who hasn't, it's a really useful tool, and you can just Google it. STAR model for interviews, and basically it's just a way to structure what you want to say. So you start by outlining the situation. So this was when it happened, this was what I was asked to set in the task, this is what I was asked to do, this is what we needed to come up with, the action, this is what I did. So this is kind of how I actioned this piece, and then the result, this is what happened. Did it go well? Didn't it? But if it didn't, what did I learn? So it just helps you structure that answer in a way that means that your interviewer is just going to be able to tick everything off and you're not leaving anything out. And then I think, yeah, the no kind of links with that a bit. It's one that we hear about a lot, and I'm so bad at it because I work as part of a team. If I go into an interview, more often than not, I will say things like, we did this and we did that, because from my perspective, we are a team, and it's very common to do. But actually in an interview, be selfish. This is about you. Your interviewers don't know the rest of your team. They don't know the people that you work with, or the people you were in a society with, or the people you're at a rugby club with. They only know about you, and they want to hear about your stuff. So although it's really difficult to do, and like I say, it's me as well, be as selfish. Just don't think about anyone else. The fact that, John Smith helped you with that. John Smith doesn't count. This is your opportunity to tell them what you did. So that's my big no. Don't use we if you can avoid it, because what the assessors really want to know is what you did.
You. That's really helpful, and really practical advice as well. I think that's great. We are coming with the last 10 minutes of the session is upon us now, and I think we've covered a lot of the questions that have come in. We've had a few that have kind of trickled in as we've just been speaking the last 5 minutes, and we'll cover those and see if any more come through in the meantime. But John asked, do existing apprentices help the new ones that come in?
I can take that. Yeah, we actually have got a buddy system. So where you get, as a new apprentice, you get paired up with an apprentice from the previous year, and they kind of look after you a little bit. They tell you a bit more about the FCA, how things work in the FCA, and they're just really there in case, you have any questions that you may be not confident to ask your manager, which you shouldn't be. You should be able to ask any questions really, but I have been there, and then you just have your buddy who you can speak to and ask any questions that you might have.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mona. And then Pete says, how much responsibility do you feel that you're given as an apprentice? I think that's quite a good one, actually.
Yeah, sure. For me, obviously, I've come from having like a year of full-time work experience and a job where I've been given quite a lot of responsibility. And coming in as an apprentice, this was one of my sort of main concerns I had joining the FCA, not just the FCA in general, but anywhere as an apprentice. I thought, I may have just been left on the side to sort of do things that other people didn't want to do. And this is completely not the case. Once you're up to scratch and you're ready to go, with all the sort of things in your team and the things that your team do, you're given such a wide range of responsibilities. And I think I'll probably speak on behalf of the rest of the people on the call. I think, that in my first sort of 6 months at the FCA, I've been given projects to go away with that involved managers, senior managers, head of departments, and having that responsibility, but also having your sort of manager looking over those. So even though you're given that responsibility, it's not something that's going to go wrong, because they'll be there to give guidance where need be. I think that's one of the really great things about the FCA is obviously coming in as an apprentice, you may feel like you're going to be treated a certain way, but that's completely not the case. I think when you're at the FCA, it doesn't matter who you speak to. You can literally approach anyone, whether it's a head of department, director, and they're always going to give their time to you. And I think that really feeds into where you get given responsibilities, that you're sort of all aligned to that one level, that you're all coming together to deliver one goal as a team. And yeah, you get given a lot of wide responsibilities, but I'm sure Mona and Hai can give a bit more insight on that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I think in my case, I have quite a bit of responsibility, and it's not something that was kind of just lumped on me the day I joined. As you get new skills, you'll get different work, and you'll be able to take on different things. And I think depending on your role, there's also an element of kind of self-tasking. I think a lot of managers will allow you to kind of decide where exactly you want to help out in the team. And yeah, I think there's there's a range of responsibility that you can have, and it's kind of up to you to to manage that along with your manager.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I agree with both Hai and Toby. And I think, as Hai said, it's really, how far you want to go, and what you think you want to take at that time. And I appreciate, if you come in new, obviously you might not be as confident to take like a bigger task on, but later, if you have the capacity, and if you speak to your manager and tell them that, they will give you further tasks as well, and bigger responsibilities. Equally, if you need more time to study, and you're fine with the projects that you have and dealing with at the moment, that's being accepted as well, and you take the time that you need.
Brilliant. And Mona, just while I've got you, we've just had a question fling in now, which says, what type of tasks are given out if you work within the HR department? If you've got any practical examples you could give us.
Yeah, I can use an example from my last rotation. I was in the strategy and policy team, and I actually got to work in a very big project, which is a all-staff career grading consultation. A consultation doesn't happen very often in any organization. We went through it last year, and I got the chance to work there in collating some of the data and the feedback that came through, which was one of the biggest tasks that I supported on as an apprentice.
Brilliant. That's really helpful. Thank you. Well, look, we've just got about 5 minutes to go until the end of the session. Ali has just asked, where's the FCA based? In London? Yes, and you've got an office in Edinburgh. So for anybody that joined us a little bit late, that's the answer to that question. And also a reminder to anybody that's joined us a little bit later on the call, all the information is on the early career section of the FCA website. So if there's anything that you feel that you've missed, you can go on there, and also this session's been recorded, so it will be emailed to you, and you'll be able to watch it all the way through again. I think just before we leave one another, I think I would like to just ask everybody, on a positive, joyful note, what the best thing about working for the FCA is for each of you individually.
I think for me, the kind of the range of things that we work on, as I've said before, financial services is a very all-encompassing term, and I think that that kind of comes with a really big range of work, and there's numerous teams in the FCA across all the different financial services. So I think that's been one of my favorite things, doing the apprenticeship here.
Brilliant. Thanks, Hai.
Yeah, for me, it's probably like the support that you get from someone who's also been on the apprenticeship scheme and then rolled off of it as well. While being an apprentice, I had that support from all of the teams I worked in, even people from outside my team and all my different rotations. And then rolling off of that as well, that support didn't go away; it stayed there. I've been off of my apprenticeship scheme for about a year now, and I've still got that support there when needed to help me continue to sort of progress my career in the area that I've gone into. So it doesn't really matter what level you're at. I feel like that support is always going to be there from people around you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
While I completely agree with Toby and what Hai said as well, I think in particular I really enjoyed the CEO challenge. Although at the beginning it felt like a really big challenge, but just seeing a project that you have worked on for so long coming to an end and really making a difference in the community was just a really, really great experience.
Wonderful.
Last but not least, I guess for me it's coming from a slightly different position because I haven't ever been an apprentice, but I guess actually working with the early careers kind of group of people. So I'm really lucky that every year I get to meet 25 new apprentices and 50 to 100 new graduates, and every person has a different experience and different level of knowledge and, you know, different background, and I get to learn a lot from them, and I get to kind of get to know new people. I'm quite a sociable person, so actually that element of my job is really enjoyable, and doing events like this and being able to kind of, I know admittedly it's through a screen, but kind of speaking to people and kind of sharing the insights that we have, that's probably one of the most enjoyable bits for me, is that kind of ability to have a bit of outreach and also get to know new people every year and see how they progress.
Brilliant. Well, everybody, thank you so much for putting together such a comprehensive presentation and answering everything so succinctly and honestly, and from, you know, using your real life experience. I think it's been so helpful. I've certainly enjoyed it. I know people watching have. We've got lots of thank yous coming through on the chat now, so thank you to the team, the FCA, and thank you to everybody who's participated in the chat and has listened and taken notes and